Hello, thank you for being in a new video. This time I have an unboxing of the Galaxy S24 Plus. Let's get started. As you will notice, this box is the special edition when you buy an exclusive color online. Right now, this device is priced at 23,999 pesos at the Samsung store. On screen, you see the reference price in dollars just to give you an idea, but remember that the prices here are not the same as over there. And it's funny because just at the time of recording this video, the 512GB edition is at that price. So pay close attention because Samsung can put interesting promotions. So let's open up this device and let's find out what's inside. And here we have the device. It looks too nice. As you can well see, this is the blue color edition, which is exclusive on Samsung's online store, but it's also available in purple, yellow, black, gray, green and orange. A huge palette of colors. We're going to take off the lens cover that's attached to it. And I'm going to turn it on. And in the meantime, let's see what else comes in the box. On this side, there is only one piece of paper. And it's a promotional paper where they advertise Samsung Care Plus, the insurance that you can get for your cell phone. So it's not something they're including, it's something they're selling you. And in this other part, we have a small box that is probably not going to have much content. Notice, there's the key to remove the SIM card tray and documentation, better known as the papers of a lifetime. Finally, the USB-C to USB-C cable is present here. And remember, no charger is included, so that charger must be purchased separately. And that's all that's in the box, so let me just put the contents away and get back to you. And that's it, I've got this device set up here. Notice, everything is perfectly fine and in order. It seems to me that I've never reviewed the Plus edition of the Galaxy S series before, so this is the year that I'm finally going to review this model. So let me quickly tell you about the main specs it integrates. Its screen is 6.7 inches in diagonal with Quad HD plus resolution. That is one of the novelties this year because this resolution is very high, although through software it is adapted so that it actually has Full HD to not consume so much energy. But in case you want to enjoy the full resolution, you can change it to Quad HD. Although I insist that Quad HD is going to consume more battery, but it's your decision. Either way, the screen, even in Full HD Plus, looks extremely sharp. Remember that it is a dynamic AMOLED 2X screen and offers 120 Hz in its refresh rate. Like the Ultra model, it has the adaptive color tone that will allow us to see the screen with a more natural white. As you can see, when the option was disabled, the screen looked too blue due to the white that exists in the environment. So I'm going to keep this option enabled because I love that they finally integrated it. I asked for it for a long time before it was only on iPhone, then it was included on Huawei and Oppo, and finally Samsung has decided to incorporate it as well. The front camera is 12 megapixels with f2.2 aperture. Before taking the picture, it still does not look well optimized, but after taking the picture, we do have a good balance of lights. In fact, there is also a good level of detail, so as a first impression, I think it does take good selfies. We will have to test it in even more difficult conditions, but at least in this first impression, it does have a good result. And look at the difference between a screenshot and the actual photograph. I do not know if you get to notice, but this screen supports HDR content, and for the first time in these Samsung devices, photographs are displayed in this format. That is, this part that is more illuminated also gains more brightness on the screen and is very much enjoyed. Although if you are one of those users who do not want to put it that way, simply access the settings and disable Super HDR and now the picture will look normal. It will not have as much brightness, but definitely for a much more realistic effect, that option looks great on this phone. On the back we have the main camera of 50 megapixels with f1.8 aperture. Then we have the ultra-wide camera with 12 megapixels and f2.2 aperture, and finally the telephoto camera with 10 megapixels and f2.4 aperture. Personally, I would have liked to see an evolution in this photographic system. Perhaps they could have put higher resolution telephoto lens to have a better zoom or better aperture, even to the same telephoto lens, but in this case, Samsung has simply kept the camera exactly the same. And that frankly is annoying. That doesn't mean it's a bad camera. Here you're looking at the result with the ultra-wide camera, then with the main camera, the 2x setting which maintains optical quality, and believe me it does, it looks pretty good. We have then the 3x zoom photograph, and we can go on. This is the 10x zoom photograph, and honestly it looks great. Notice how it even managed to capture the insects that were flying around that flower there. And we have finally 30x as the maximum zoom. So it's a very good photographic system, but really it's not that much of an evolution from the last generation. In fact, notice how it incorporates Gorilla Glass Victus 2 instead of Gorilla Armor, which is the new generation. So I insist that in reality there is not so much evolution with respect to the last generation model. It would have been much better if they had also put Gorilla Armor, which they premiered in the Galaxy S24 Ultra, but they didn't want to put that either. It has a fingerprint reader that is located inside the display, so this again is something we already saw from the last generation. There's nothing new, it's still pretty much the same reader. Its battery is 4,900 milliamps. In this section we do see an evolution since they increased 200 milliamps, which is not too much, but it is work on this, especially considering that it is still a slim device. It is 7.7 millimeters thick and weighs 196 grams. And looking at it in profile, honestly, it looks quite different from last generation. In fact, it looks very similar to an iPhone, we have to be honest about that, with a fairly straight line frame. It doesn't come with a charger, so you have to buy it separately. And this model also comes with several artificial intelligence features. If you don't know each of them in the review, I'll more or less explain how they work. But obviously the most remarkable one, or the one that catches your attention the most, is the photo editor. In the editor we have a button for generative editing with which we can move objects or also delete them completely. So notice we're going to mark all of this, and I'm just going to select here to make it much bigger, as if it were the sun bigger. We're going to set generate now. Obviously we wait a few seconds and it will do the magic for us by editing this picture. In this case the result, to be honest, was very bad. Let's make an attempt with this other photograph and try to remove this object. Let's select it and notice how intelligently it adjusts. But you can also select more specifically. So let's remove this object completely and let's select to automatically fill that other object. And look at the result. It's almost perfect. Let me put it down so that I can zoom in so that you can see this difference. If you get really detailed, if you get to notice that there's something weird there, but definitely at a glance it looks like a very advanced result. It has a storage version, and that's precisely the one that I have available, although the base model looks to me to be 256 gigabytes, and it also has up to 12 gigabytes of RAM, although it also has a base model of 8 gigabytes of RAM. And you know, Samsung lately has included this RAM Plus feature, so it uses another bit of the internal storage space to extend the RAM. By default it comes on with 8 gigabytes, so we're going to leave it at that setting for the review. And finally, the processor is the Exynos 2400, a controversial processor, but we're going to test it right now, and why not? We're going to bring guests first to the Galaxy S24 Ultra, which brings the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, and we also brought the iPhone 15 Plus to see what it can offer us in power. So we're going to run these benchmarks and we'll come back when all three devices are done to give a little conclusion. And just look at the surprise that we're getting. Exynos 2400 has beaten both the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 as well as this processor that Apple uses in the iPhone, which is not the most recent generation because that was reserved for the Pro models. But it definitely looks like the Exynos processor this generation will come very competitive. And I actually find it very curious to compare Samsung and Apple's Plus model 1-to-1 because I definitely think that Samsung's model will be much more attractive. It has 3 cameras, whereas the iPhone doesn't. In design they are quite similar on the sides. Apple's screen is still stuck at 60 Hz, whereas Samsung took it to 120 Hz. So I think in many ways the Samsung Plus model completely outperforms the Apple Plus model. But anyway, let me know in the comments if you would like to see a comparison between these two. For now, we have reached the end of this video. If you liked it, you know you can let me know, and we'll see you next time.